Hello, everyone. Please forgive me again for the inconvenience. I apologize for being a few minutes behind schedule. It's been a very busy day today, but welcome to another edition of the Beauty and Us Radio right here on Awesome Guy Radio. I'm Nelson Brown. So, as I was saying, my mic was muted, but I said all that. But I was saying that I hope you guys had a chance to really enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend and Thanksgiving Day last week. I know that people were still in the holiday rush. I know that a lot of the school systems were closed. I know that a lot of people were still trying to get back to some sense of what they considered to be normal for the Thanksgiving holiday. Um, I hope you all had a chance to really enjoy the presence of your family members and friends that you may not have seen or spoken to since the pandemic started. I know a lot of people wanted to get back into the swing of things. I know a lot of people wanted to enjoy their turkeys and cranberry sauce and mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese and sauerkraut and all of the other unhealthy things that you consume that raise your cholesterol or give you gout or elevate your sugar levels. But anywho, again, I just wanted to have a conversation with you all tonight about the beauty in friendships. I know that we are in a season where a lot of people are thinking about their family members and friends, and I think that generosity is the spirit that is prevalent during this time of year. A lot of people think about being generous the most during this time of year where you still have a lot of communities that may not be as fortunate to have family members and to have friends. You have people within your community, in our community, I should say, who may not be fortunate enough to really take advantage of opportunities where they can be in the presence of other people, have people to call family, have people to call friends. I think that there's a lot of sadness and loneliness that takes place during this time of year because you do have a lot of people who have lost family members and who've lost friends, or a lot of people who may not have family or may not have friends to run to or turn to when they go through traumatic things in their lives. So I wanted to take some time to talk about the beauty in friendships because I think that it is healthy to have friendships. I think that it is beneficial for all of us, young or old, um, uh, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, whether you're a male or female, it doesn't matter. I think there's beauty in every friendship, young and old, no matter who you are, what you identify with, how you show up in the world. I think that there's beauty in every friendship. And I think that friendships are things that we all need. I mean, we all can't operate in this world by ourselves. We can't go about our daily lives without people to call up when we need something, or we don't. It's not advisable to just go through life alone. It's not recommended to go alone. A lot of people do, unfortunately, but it's not recommended. So I just wanted to take some time for about 40 minutes to talk about the beauty in friendships. Now, when we talk about friendships, we can think about why they're important, but we can also think about how beneficial it is to really have friendships and really let's just really just talk about how why friends are important. So I, instead of just incorporating my personal opinions into the conversation, I did pull some information from some sources that say that having friends is good for your emotional and physical health. And that's because friends can help us when we're down. They can encourage us to learn new things. They can keep us on track to meet our goals. And as we continue to widen our social circles, we have to keep in mind that friendships come in all shapes and sizes. And from the best friend who's always there for you to the friendly neighbor you chat with while you're doing yard work. So it lets us know that we can see a friend in the people that we cross paths with on a daily basis, people that we speak to on a regular basis. We're always in the position to build new friendships and new relationships. So that's what that's reminding us about. And we may feel closer to some people and less with others, but that's okay. When we reach out to make new friends, or when we make attempts to rekindle old relationships, we have to look for people who have specific qualities. And according to this source that I was able to really um, examine, I guess review rather, in terms of the qualities that we all should be looking for when we're trying to make new friends and when we're trying to establish new relationships. I think that before I talk about the list, I wanted to let you all know that friendships are beneficial for us in all facets of our lives. I think that as we continue to grow older and as we continue to grow wiser, I think that as we mature, our friendships tend to get smaller and smaller. Our circles, actually, I should say, tend to get smaller and smaller because we begin to appreciate the friendships, the quality of the friendships, rather than the quantity of friendships. I remember earlier on in high school where I was able to really, really learn about that and how important it was to really distinguish between who you are, who you're trying to be, and who you want in your boat. I think that I was definitely able to learn that because I do know that while we're growing up and while we're learning and growing and we are trying to become who we are as young people, when we're in our teens and when we are children, we are trying to really search for an identity during that time period. We're really trying to figure out who we are. And when we talk about the quality of friendships and how important they are versus the quantity of friendships, I'm always reminded of the fact that I had a relative um, who at the time was in high school with me, and she was interested for some reason, I don't know why, but she was interested in befriending 5,000 people on Facebook. And I thought about that while we were both in high school studying at different magnet schools. And I just thought about the fact that, okay, why is that really important to people in terms of the quantity of friends? Because I know that personally, I care about the quality of friendships. But when we examine the quality of friendships, we have to think about how close we are to other people versus how many people there are in our lives or in our circles. Because just because people are in your life or in your circle doesn't necessarily mean that you can call them a friend. We have acquaintances, we have associates, but how many of us really have good friendships, like close bonds, close relationships with the people in our lives? We have a lot of associates. We have a lot of colleagues. We have a lot of people that we just interact with on a daily basis. We have acquaintances, people we just know. But how many people do we truly have in our circle? How many people can we truly call friends? How many people can we really call up on the phone and really, chat about things that bother us, confide in whenever we feel like falling or whenever things just feel like they're falling apart? Who can we be the most vulnerable with? Those are some of the things that we have to think about when we really think about friendships and the relationships that we have with other people. So while I was doing my research, I was able to read about the many qualities people should look for and that are recommended. I guess, people are recommended to look for these qualities for people that they're trying to meet and bond with and rekindle old relationships with. Sources say that friends who give you emotional support, that's a quality that's important because whenever you're, it says that whenever you're feeling down or going through a hard time, talking things over with a supportive friend can make a real difference to your mental health. And what does emotional support feel like? It states that your friend makes you feel heard and acknowledges your point of view, and often referred to as a good listener, someone to lean on, or a sounding board. Friends who express empathy are invaluable to our emotional well-being. So when we talk about emotional support, we sometimes when we think about emotional support, a lot of people have a tendency to really think about tears and sadness, and that may be true, but sometimes that emotional support just requires that person as a friend to listen. Sometimes emotional support just requires that person to just acknowledge the other person's point of view. Sometimes that emotional support just means that the person is there. Just being there sometimes is the best emotional support. So again, when we express empathy, when we are that person who's there, our presence speaks for itself. We may not even have to say anything, but our presence speaks for itself when we're trying to give our friends emotional support. When we are listening instead of judging or providing our own opinions or thoughts about whatever it is that they're sharing with us, we learn how to be a better listener. But again, we acknowledge that person's point of view. But again, our support, being there, listening, and just, again, being the sounding board, like they describe, can are different ways that we can provide our friends with emotional support whenever they feel like falling or whenever they are not having the best day. The second quality that they talk about is friends who give helpful advice. Now, it says that having a buddy you can talk to when making a big decision or need some practical pointers on, say, using video chat can help you stay sharp. That's because it's so easy to get stuck in our own heads when making decisions. Checking in with someone whose opinion you trust helps broaden your view and identify different approaches to solving problems. Friends who are always there with a helpful word can also help you feel motivated to stick with developing healthy habits. So, the second quality we can talk about is helpful advice when we think about friends and the people that we want to have in our corner. So, friends who give helpful advice is important. I think that that's beneficial for us as well because we all need. It's not good to trust everybody's opinion on everything that happens, right? It's not good to trust everybody's input about things that really matter to us. But when we have strong friendships and when we are in the position where we've developed healthy relationships with others, we can have those friends in our corner who can encourage us to see things from a different lens. We have friends in our corner who can help us make good decisions, healthy decisions. And we also have those friends that can give us advice. It may not be something that we may want to hear, but I guess they call it tough love in terms of just letting that person know that okay, maybe this is the wrong decision, or maybe this is you're screwing this up. Maybe you need to go this way. This is how I see it. This is how we all see it. Maybe you need to take a different direction. So we all need friends who can give us helpful insight because everyone has input. But again, if you really trust that person and if you really think that they are a reliable source for information and for any problem that you may encounter, I think it's of your best interest to really take heed to what they say, and and it's a win-win scenario for everyone. You have the support, you have the insight, and you make the healthy decision, and you develop the healthy habit, and that's what makes things better. The third quality is it says that friends who give you a sense of belonging. Now, this one was the most interesting for me personally out of all three qualities that they talk about when we look for people to develop new friendships with or rekindle old relationships with. When we talk about friends who give you a sense of belonging, it states that there's nothing like finding someone who shares your love for something, for a hobby, or gets your sense of humor. Humans, by our very nature, crave feeling accepted. Friends who share similar interests are wonderful for satisfying our need to feel connected to others. So they always encourage you to join a new group or go back to one you've tried in the past to find friends you have something in common with. So that sense of belonging is very important for us when we are trying to make new friends or when we're trying to build relationships or rebuild relationships with others that may not be there or may not be as strong, I should say. When we have friends who have some of the similar hobbies that we have people who understand us. When we have friends who have some of the same hobbies and interests that we have, we don't have to worry about, again, we don't have to worry about explaining ourselves constantly or, wondering why that person does not understand our thought process or how we go about doing things. You can all find something that you can enjoy. We can all find something that we enjoy with our friends, and we can cultivate our passions, and we can have people in our corner who can really, really help us fulfill those dreams, those passions, and those hobbies that we have, things that we enjoy doing. It's really fun to kick back and celebrate those passions, whatever you may be interested in. And I think that's why oftentimes I think about some of my grade school days, and even while I was in middle school and high school, I think about the fact that in addition to sports We also had clubs and organizations. So the purpose of the clubs and organizations when we attend school from kindergarten or even pre-K, some of us, all the way up until 12th grade and even college, the purpose of the clubs and organizations that they do have is so that the students can have an opportunity to meet new people and develop new relationships and take an interest in a new hobby so that they can again bond with the people who have those same hobbies and who are in that club and or who are um, active in that sport or who are participating in that organization. So the purpose of clubs and organizations is so that people can again find new hobbies, make new friends, build new relationships. That's what it's all about. So I think that that's a plot that applies to the conversation that we're having right now when we talk about friendships and what it means to really develop new relationships, healthy ones at that. I was thinking about um, some lessons that I've learned after listening to a couple of sermons when we think about friendships. And one quote that I was able to really read and understand was strong, godly friendships are a blessing from the Lord. And when we talk about building lasting friendships, the subtitle is well to this passage is how many friends do you have? And it's a passage from 1 Samuel chapter 18 verses 1 through 4. And again, this is a biblical verse. I'm adding a little bit of Bible talk in here. It says that strong godly friendships like Jonathan and David's are a blessing from the Lord. So when we look at this passage, we can definitely get where they're coming from. It says that now when he has finished speaking to Saul, the son of Jonathan, the son of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him go home to his father's house anymore. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, even to his sword and his bow and his belt. And it goes on to say, how many friends do you have? And I don't mean the people you connect with on social media. I'm talking about the few people who really know you and stick with you through thick and thin. Such mutual friendships are rare today. What does it take to develop this kind of relationship? And that's what I've been discussing this entire time. It says that there could be no finer example than the friendship between David and Jonathan, and three qualities stand out. It says that the first quality, when we talk about this passage with David and John, in terms of what we are really examining as it pertains to the relationship between the two of them, we can see that the relationship was characterized by mutual respect. And I think that mutual respect is something that often gets lost in today's world. But I think that the reality is that we can maintain a genuine friendship only with someone for whom we have high regard. So I think that again, we have to have a mutual level of respect for people that we consider to be friends. If there's no respect, there's no relationship that we can really build. There are a lot of people who speak to people that they may not necessarily respect, because you can speak to people and not really respect them. I think that that's an important distinction to make. So when we talk about the mutual respect, as it's described in this passage, we think about the people we hold in high regard. We may not like every decision that they make or things that they do, but we still respect them. But again, when we that gets lost in today's world, because a lot of us don't understand that the reality is that like the passage says, that we can maintain a genuine friendship with someone for whom we have high regard and not necessarily like the things they do or agree with everything that they may disagree with. The second quality that they outline is that David and Jonathan felt strong love for one another. And even though they weren't related, these two friends shared a relationship as deep and loyal as a brotherhood. So I put brotherhood and sisterhood in the hashtags below on the ticker, because I think that when we think about sisterhoods and when we think about brotherhoods, we think about men and women supporting each other. And I think that that's the key to developing healthy relationships with people who in your peer group. I think that men, it's really beneficial for men in particular to form brotherhoods, just as it is important for women to develop sisterhoods and build strong relationships with other women. Men and women can be loyal to their peer groups, and I think that a lot of us need to understand that when we develop friendships, there's no competitive streak that we should have with our friends. I think that when we have our brotherhoods and when we have our sisterhoods and our friendships, I think that when one of us wins, we all win. I think that it's important for us to support each other. And I think that nowadays, because of the way the world is going, a lot of people have been really, really self-centered in terms of how they choose to move and operate in their lives. A lot of people are focused on what's going to be beneficial for them and what's going to elevate them. And instead of really, really celebrating, their sisters and their brothers, the people who are on the journey with them, a lot of people have a hard time reaching back and, helping people along the way because people forget their humble beginnings and how they started. But when we think about the people in our peer group, we have to think about the fact that, we don't compete with our friends. Our friends are supposed to be our support system. Our friends are supposed to be our rocks, the people we go to whenever we need something, or people who can give us the extra push whenever we need that extra push. But again, because of the way the world is going, a lot of people are focused on what they're going to get out of a situation, or how a situation may benefit them, and instead of really focusing on uplifting others and just reaching back and helping their peers along the way, being the motivator. So I think that that's something that has to be acknowledged. The third quality is that their commitment to each other was genuine. And it goes on to say that these were no fair weather friends. Their bond withstood even the attempts by King Saul to kill David. And that's according to 1 Samuel chapter 23, verses 15 through 18. And it also goes on to say that Jonathan refused to let anything, not even his own father's jealous fury, come between him and his friend. So when we think about our friendships, we can think about the mutual respect that we have for them. We can think about the strong love that we have for them, but we can also think about what's sincere, what's genuine. And again, when we think about the fair weather friends that they make references to, when we talk about that, when we talk about fair weather friends or seasonal friendships, we can talk about the people who are just in our lives during a certain period to help get us to where we need to go. Sometimes I find that through much prayer and much of my time with God, I often pray about friendships. I often pray about the relationships I have with other people. I think about the bonds that I've been able to establish. I still have childhood friends, people that I've known since kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. I still have people that I've befriended since middle school and even high school. So I think that God, when we pray and talk to God about friendships and when we are building relationships, I think it's important to understand that God moves people out of our lives who are not meant to be a part of our lives because he has something bigger and better in store. The seasonal friendships or the fair weather friends are the people who are, again, only in our lives for a season to help us get to where we need to be. But sometimes we have a tendency to outgrow friendships and outgrow people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That means that God is preparing us for something bigger and better. So I've learned, when I've learned about the beauty in friendships and when I've learned about the beauty of developing healthier relationships, I think about the fact that it's not always a bad thing when God moves people out of our lives. Sometimes we hold on to relationships and even friendships that God is really trying to remove from our space and remove from our social circle because they're no longer meant to be there. They helped us get to where we needed to go for a period of our lives, but sometimes friends outgrow each other and they go in the opposite direction. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be cordial with them or that you can't be civil with them. It just means that they're just the friendship with them can't continue. It just means that you're moving on to something bigger and better, and so are they in some ways. I've I've been able to really, really see the shift that's happened throughout the course of the pandemic in relationships and in friendships in my own life and in the lives of others. I've realized that since I am going in a different direction, I have people that have been introduced and who've been blessings in my lives and who are still there for me when I need them, who are still here for me. And I have people that I had to, introduce to Mr. and Mrs. Click. I had people that I had to cut off because I realized that, they're not going to be, they're not going to be, they're not going to be a part of my boat. They're not going to be a part of my life for the long haul. I realized that that some of the friendships and the bonds that I had with some people that pre-pandemic, I can't I can't continue post-pandemic. So I've realized that, but I'm thankful that I've had a chance to meet so many amazing people in 2022. I started reflecting on a lot of the things that I've accomplished this year. I've been able to network with a lot of new faces, a lot of new people. I was able to develop new friendships and new bonds with new people, and I was able to say goodbye to old ones. So I think it's important for us to understand that God's not going to introduce us to better friendships and new people if we continue to hold on to the old relationships and to the older people, the old bonds, I should say, excuse me, in our circle. So when we let those go, we can make room for some new friends and some new relationships. But if we continue to hold on to the relationships that are not there and the relationships that are not beneficial, we can't make room, for new people. And when God's elevating us and when God's trying to get us into a better space emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically, that creates a shift in our lives. And once we have a better understanding of that, and once we are in a position where we can let go of the people in our lives that aren't serving us well, we can attract a different caliber of people who are going to be bringing stuff to our table and not just eating things off of our table. When we have relationships with people, and when we're developing bonds with the people that we cross paths with, I think it's important to note that people should not come with their hands out all the time. I think it's important for people to give us that push or that leg up. A lot of people are walking around with people in their lives who aren't serving them well. A lot of us have allowed people for sometimes weeks, months, and even years eat things off of our table, but they've never brought anything to our table. I think it's important for us to understand that. So I just challenge you guys to really think about the people in your lives who are really bringing things to your table. It doesn't even necessarily have to be friends or colleagues at work. It could be your family. A lot of us, we have family members that we still, speak to who are not and have relationships with that aren't healthy. We have people who aren't bringing things to our table, even if it's our family. Just because it's your family doesn't mean that you have to have them in your circle. Sometimes you are still in the position to just love them from a distance. Sometimes it's best to just love them from a distance and not have them in your social circle 24/7. People should be adding value to your life, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, whether it's a colleague at work, whether it's someone in your church, whether it's someone in your school, whether it's someone in your community. We all need people to add value to our lives. If you feel as though a person is not adding value to your life, whether they're a friend, whether they're a family member, whoever they may be, and whatever role that they've played in your life, if they're not adding value to your life, I think that it's important to pray and talk to God and just allow God to just move that person out of your life. And I think that it may sound trite, but God does work in mysterious ways. And I think that in a very subtle way, God is able to really introduce you to new people and new opportunities and new faces. And he's able to get rid of the old ones that aren't serving you well in the new season of your life. And I think that we can all think about our best friends, um, and how many of the qualities that I've just described, such as mutual respect, the strong love, and also what's genuine. I think that when we think about our best friends or people that we may have known for years and years, eons, I think that it's important to understand that when we think about our best friends, the people who know us the most, people that we've laughed with, the people that we've cried with, the people that we've shared the same space with, the people that we've grown up with. I mean, we can all, I mean, I think that best friend, the term best friend can be described in so many different ways, depending on who you are. But when we think about our friends, our best friends, and when we think about who's really been a part of our life and who's really, again, been that shoulder to cry on whenever we felt like falling and whenever we feel like giving up, I think that our best friends are the people, again, who are still adding value to our lives and who are not just taking things off of our table, they're bringing things to our table. So I'm trying to really get everybody to understand. I hope you guys are really enjoying this abbreviated show because I've been thinking a lot about the beauty in friendships. I think this is a very important conversation to have, especially in the season that we're in, because again, a lot of people get sad and really depressed around this time of year because a lot of people don't have those relationships and who don't have those friendships, with people every day or even with their family. I think that it's also important to understand, like I had stated last week and in previous shows, that the suicide rate for people is off the walls anyway, but especially around this time of year. So a lot of people get sad around the holiday season. You have people who've lost people throughout the years. They may have lost family members or friends, and again, the holiday season is just not a good day, is not a good period for them throughout the course of the year. But I always like to remind everyone that the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is always available. So you're always available to, for instance, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988, or you can text GO to 741741 to reach a trained crisis counselor through the Crisis Text Hotline, which is a global not-for-profit organization and is free 24 hours, 7 days a week, and all of the information that you share is confidential. So I think that, again, it's important for us to understand that friendships matter, relationships matter. A lot of us have been really, really hurt throughout the years because we may not have been treated fairly. We may not have, we may have had healthy relationships that may have been tarnished. A lot of us may, in a sense, feel bitter about that. And I encourage everyone, I'm talking to myself here. I'm encouraging everyone to let go of the bitterness and forgive and move forward. It sounds easier said than done, but the first step to forgiveness and really healing and moving forward, and when you're trying to rebuild a relationship with someone, is acknowledging what was done, acknowledging the offense, and acknowledging the wrongdoing. Because in a relationship, the breakdown in a relationship, um, it's affected by both people. So it's not just one party or the other. Whenever you're trying to fix a relationship, acknowledging what was done is the first step. When you're trying to forgive that person and when you're trying to move forward, acknowledging what was done is the first step. The second step is, again, pointing out the offenses. So, a lot of us may be in the position where we may not have liked what the person has done or how they've treated us. And that causes us to really, really put up this wall. So when we're hurt, we have a tendency to put up a wall, and that wall is supposed to be a barrier that keeps us from getting hurt again. But the problem is that sometimes we can't see past our own pain, and sometimes we are not in the position to really distinguish when we're hurt and when we're angry and bitter and resentful. We're not in the position to really, really distinguish between what's healthy and what's not healthy, what's positive and what's not positive, what's a genuine person versus an ungenuine person, if that's even a word. But when we put up that wall, it can block us from blessings. It can block us from opportunities. And I'm learning, and then this is a lesson for me. I'm not just talking to you guys. I'm not just running my mouth here. I'm also learning how to break down barriers and break down those walls, because you can never open the door to new opportunities and to new people as long as you have that wall up. And again, opening yourself up and just being vulnerable enough to just know that sometimes things may work out and sometimes things may not work out in relationships or friendships with other people. It may work out, it may not work out, but your willingness to be vulnerable, that means that you're willing to take that risk. Is it a possibility that you may get hurt in the process? Sure. But is it the end of the world? No. You can recover from hurt. Just because you may experience hurt does not mean that it's the end of the world. So a lot of people who may feel alone, a lot of people who may not feel as though they are in the position to really trust on people, my heart goes out to them because I know how it feels to be hurt. I know how it feels to feel like you've been taken for granted or taken advantage of. I know what it feels like to put up a wall. I've done it myself. I think everybody does it in some way or another. But when it gets to the point where you're just fearful of opportunities, and when you can't see past your own pain, and when you cannot allow people to love you unconditionally, that's when it becomes problematic. You are in the position to, be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to just be as humble, open, and transparent with that person. But giving yourself a false sense of security in friendships and in any type of relationship, and thinking that as long as you have some sense of authority or control over it, that makes things better. It doesn't. And I'm learning that too. You're wasting your time, and you're walking on eggshells, and you're giving yourself a false sense of security when you try to control the other person. And if you try to control the way the friendship goes or the relationship goes, versus just letting things pan out, and just be having a free spirited heart and mindset about it, and just taking it for how it comes, and just letting it run its course, and just seeing where it goes. So I hope that you all have enjoyed. I'm going to wrap this up, but I hope that you all have really enjoyed this broadcast. I hope that you guys really had a chance to really think about friendships and relationships. It's very important for all of us to have friends. It's very important for all of us to have healthy relationships. It's very important for all of us to understand that just because we're hurt doesn't mean that it's over. It doesn't mean that we can't trust anybody anymore. It doesn't mean that just because we're hurt, we can't move on. We can't open ourselves up to new faces and new opportunities. We just have to put ourselves out there and hope for the best, and just know that we can recover. We don't need to put up that wall with everyone and in every situation. When we open ourselves up to new people and new opportunities, we tear that wall down, and we become stronger men and women. A lot of trauma that many of us may have suffered from the past is maybe a part of the reason why we still have that wall up, and we don't even know it. But again, once we are able to acknowledge what was done, acknowledging the offense, bringing it to that person, when both people are in a position to talk about the relationship in terms of what the breakdown was and what took place, then that's when you're in a position to forgive and move forward. That's when you make a step in the right direction. But I hope you guys had a really, really great time listening to this broadcast. I thank you all again for taking time out of your schedule to listen to this broadcast. I hope you guys learned a lot. Even though it's an abbreviated show, I tried to make it as clear and concise as I possibly could with the information that I had right before you. So I wanted to encourage you all to, again, make sure that you subscribe to Awesome God Radio on YouTube, and make sure that you all follow us on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and Facebook. You name it, we're on it. And make sure that you guys follow me at Nelson E. Brown on Twitter and on Instagram, and at Nelson Brown on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I thank you all for tuning in each and every week from 6 to 7 p.m. I love all of you. I don't take any of you all for granted. What I've been thankful for is my audience, my all of my readers, all of the listeners, everyone who continues to tune into each and every show. I thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to just be as transparent, humble, and open about many of my insecurities, about many of my struggles, and about many of my weaknesses. And thank you for reminding me of my strengths. Thank you for motivating me. Thank you for um, helping me grow into a better young man and young adult. I've learned so much throughout the course of this pandemic and even early on in adulthood. This has been a very, very humbling experience. So I just want to note that and just make sure that I make mention of that. So that wraps up another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. So make sure you guys subscribe to all of our social media platforms. Make an appointment to meet me back here on December 6th, Tuesday, December 6th, next week from 6 to 7 p.m. I'll have the topic ready, and I'll be on time at 6 p.m. And again, I apologize for the inconvenience. It's been a really, really busy day. But I'll be here next week, Tuesday, not June, December 6th from 6 to 7 p.m. And um, again, just to remind you guys, I'm going to be presented with the Social Change Award for from Kathleen Kennedy Townsend at Civic Works at the Clifton Mansion next week. Well, in 2 weeks, on Tuesday, December 13th. So I've been humbly honored to accept the Social Change Award from Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. So I'll be at the Clifton Mansion, and I'll have a chance to meet with several Civic Works staff members, and I'll have a chance to meet Miss Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. I'll be humbled and honored to accept this award for my passion for social change and for my service to the community. So I thank you all again for allowing me to serve. I thank you all again for allowing me to be as transparent and open again about my struggles, about my insecurities, and about everything that I go through every day. And again, I don't take the Social Change Award for granted. I'm very, very excited about what's to come. In 2 weeks, this Saturday, I have a Painting with a Twist event that I'm facilitating with my mom to celebrate all of my achievements from this year, between my graduation and my internships and everything. So the year is coming to an end, but I've been in a very celebratory mode for the past several months. So again, I love you all and I appreciate you all, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Stay warm.